Hello, Brobs. We're back with Anyone's Son, a true story. Roberta Roche with the killer Harry De La Roche Jr. I believe this is chapter 8. These things don't happen to people you know. "25. Dr. Emmanuel Tenay, a Detroit psychiatrist who has done extensive research on the causes of homicide, states in his book, The Murderers, that lives could be saved through a greater knowledge of what goes on in the minds and hearts of people burdened with years of personal frustration. In most homicides, between 60 and 80% of them, there is an intense emotional relationship between murderer, and victim," he writes. "Homicide, so to speak, is most often an affair of the heart. Murder is indeed a family affair, because family members both love and hate one another, and the hate, if it becomes excessive, may explode in murder. People invariably kill the ones they love and hate, for no one else is important enough to provoke murderous rage. Murder marks the end, the tragic end of a very ambivalent relationship." While Dr. Tenay and others provide psychiatric views of intrafamily murders, the shattered residents of Montvale were saying again and again they were a normal family like any of the rest of us, or these things just don't happen to the people you know. In the beginning, people talked about family breakdowns that could lead to crimes such as this. And those who saw it in this light viewed the murders as a strong indictment of the lack of communication that exists in some families today. They were the ones who were first to say, "We don't condone the shootings, but we understand how it could have happened. If Harry got free tomorrow, he'd be welcome at our home." In other circles, there was hatred. And these were the groups who said from the first, "Make an example of De La Roche so it won't happen here again." Along with this kind of hatred, many people who'd moved from the cities to get away from crime were shaken by the awakening that the same crimes they had fled from were happening in the suburbs and in their neighbors' homes. Some who were highly sensitive to having this happen in Montvale wanted to suppress it and believe it had never occurred. Others with a social conscience called for a greater understanding of the need for counseling and therapy that can come to any family. In an interview in The Record, the newspaper which serves Bergen County, the Reverend A. Wayne Schwab, a former Montvale pastor and later the Evangelism and Renewal Officer at the Episcopal Center in New York, stated, "Our underlying assumption to this day is that seeking help is weakness, and strong people solve their emotional behavioral problems in only one way, and that is alone. We make a stigma out of the problem, look the other way, and ostracize those who don't fit the assigned roles in our so-called serene suburban scene. I am speaking out of experience when I say people go on ignoring the troubled until, like Harry, they commit terrifying acts, or stopping short of that, they live with limping psyches or simply deteriorate. It follows that we need to know what goes on within ourselves. Here in the suburbs, the crisp, neat lawns and the shuttered windows present a dramatic symbol. Fine on the outside, but what's within? Some families do thrive on the suburban style of living, but it can be difficult. In the accepted values, there is very little room for the Harrys, who can't make the teams, who have mannerisms that are mocked. Nothing works for them. We have to penetrate the shattered windows and the happy face that is a mask. We have to acquire a sense that our illnesses of the head and heart can be healed. We have to know that the best of us may become disturbed, deeply disturbed. We have to know what happens to oneself and to others. Harry's father didn't understand. because Harry wasn't cut out for a military school, but there's nothing in the climate to encourage a Harry or the father of a Harry to take a look inside themselves, and no one helped them to do it. Interviews with the family's friends yielded a mixed bag of feelings. During Harry's first days in jail, the newspapers keep calling me and asking me to talk about it, said Steve Mahoney, but I won't say anything. Many of the kids who were interviewed for newspapers or TV stories were the very people who mocked out Harry or who didn't know him well. They agreed to talk to reporters just to get their names in the paper. I'm willing to say, however, that Harry couldn't have done it. Some of Harry's other friends reacted in the same way. I didn't believe it when I heard it, and I'm still unable to believe it, Vinnie Trojan declared. Harry didn't have it in him to do anything like that. The lid blew off for Harry, added Jeff D. Causemaker. If only he'd been able to let off steam and come to an understanding about his relationships with his parents. No matter what happens, even if it's proven that he did this, he'll never be guilty in my eyes, said Bob Gant. I saw the things that Harry went through, so if he reached a breaking point, how many situations helped put him in this spot? The kids in school called him names, his father who pressured him, the citadel where he was told what to do and couldn't fight back wisely. Other peers had different views, ranging from compassion to an all-out dislike. The way I see it, Harry's life is pretty well decided now, suggested a former classmate who said he couldn't stand Harry. Basically, he's taken care of, so I don't think the death of his family is any great loss to him. He has alleviated the problem, and the pressure is off. If Harry did it, speculated another peer, he might have shot his father not only to get out from under him, but also to keep him from being hurt, because he was leaving school. Then he had to shoot his mother because he couldn't face her after shooting his father. The same thing would be true of his brothers. How could he look at either of them after shooting his parents? He may have thought when everyone was gone, he'd really have his own life. Lisa Fritz, Jeff's sister, who saw him Saturday night, had the feeling that Harry seemed sad when he came to pick up Jeff. I knew him for about a year, and I really liked him when I first met him, she reported. He seemed to be very lonely, and I soon got the impression he was hardly ever home. But there was a definite difference in Harry's attitude from the first time I met him to Saturday night. He just seemed very sad to me, and I felt sorry for him. Looking at things after the fact, I believe that Harry may have always had an immaturity or instability few people were sensitive to, said a woman who knew the whole family. He always needed friendship, but not enough people sensed it. Instead, they ribbed him and taunted him, simply because he was different. Maybe some kind of crisis was bound to erupt someday. When the newspapers came out that Sunday, I was astounded to read that Harry was mocked out and put down, said Irene Bickerton. He was gentle and soft at our house. But from the things we read and the little things we knew, we've kind of put it together and feel that he might have been justified, put in Ben Bickerton thoughtfully. Certainly not to the extent he went, but we feel tremendous compassion for him. And the only thing that we can say is he must have gone absolutely berserk, like any one of us could, if the pressure were that bad. You would have to be insane, a De La Roche neighbor reasoned. How else could you kill your whole family and handle and move their bodies? I don't think Harry had a plan. I just think he went wild. If he'd taken the time to think things out, why didn't he hide the bodies in an isolated spot? Why didn't he throw the pistol in a lake? Why didn't he take off for school? Just a week before he came home from school, I met his mother on the street, another neighbor revealed. And I can hear her saying now, Harry will stick it out. Later, I met the father, and when I asked how Harry was, he said, he couldn't be better. You could tell by the way he answered that he had definitely made up his mind that Harry was going to make it. Paul Mulligan, a member of the Marine Corps Reserve and the father of Eric's best friend, recalled in the hours after the crime that the first week Harry Jr. was at the Citadel, Harry Sr. wanted information on how Harry could plan to be a Marine Corps officer 4 years from that time. Steve Madriperla, Harry Sr.'s good friend, spent much of his time in Montvale during those tragic days, and as Steve Mahoney had said of young Harry, "Harry is my friend." Steve Madriperla said the same of Harry Sr. He wanted strength and security for his son, Steve explained. And while some people thought his approach to this was a too stiff discipline, others might call it a dedication to what he thought was right. His family was everything to him, but there was something about his discipline and Harry Jr.'s chemistry that didn't mix. While Montvale continued its post-mortems, many of the residents added, "Let the family rest in peace. We can all offer our speculations and give opinions, but nothing will bring back the De La Roche family," said a husband and wife who had worked with them in many community activities. "Our hope is that Harry and Mary Jane never woke to see who killed them, for they loved all three of their sons. But I also think of Harry Jr., a neighbor said. I have no animosities toward him, and I hope he comes out all right. Every day when I wake up, I think it could have been my son." On Monday morning after the crime, while Pascack Hills was in session, the principal, Bart DiPaola, spoke to the student body over the school's loudspeaker. "We all need somebody to understand us," he said. "Let us hope that from this day forward, we stop mocking each other out and start becoming more sensitive to each other as human beings." This mocking each other out statement is kind of an odd phrase of the time, I guess. But there's the mailman. Didn't think I was getting anything, but I guess that's all for now. All right, bruv. Terrible weather outside. The weather outside's frightful, bruv, but it's only rain. All right, bruv. Goodbye.